From a beer that was served at temperatures that could probably melt glass,
You're so warm, I'm surprised it didn't melt the glass.
to drafts so toxic and spoiled that they caused a professional expert to violently vomit after just one sip. Here's a look at the worst beers served in Bar Rescue, starting with Fairways Golf and Grill. Fairways Golf and Grill was a struggling sports bar located in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, owned by Richard Jordan, a former corporate finance worker who decided to use his life savings to build a bar themed around his favorite hobby. Richard bought a $40,000 golf simulator, which he thought would pull in a big crowd. However, this plan didn't pan out as he expected, losing $10,000 in his first month. Every other marketing ploy he tried fell through, and he was forced to return to his accounting job just to keep the doors open.
So I'm working one job to pay for my dream to stay open.
Because Richard was mostly absent, the bulk of the work fell onto Michelle, who couldn't revive the bar on her own.
My hands are tied on everything.
When John Taffer and his team arrived, it didn't take long for them to notice that the staff had no understanding of basic bar science. The situation became clear during the recon phase when John sent in mixologist Phil Wills and chef Brian Duffy to evaluate the beverage service. As Brian watched the bartender, he noticed a major technical failure, where every beer was being served in a frosty mug.
Look, everything is in frosted mug, and then look at the holy.
As if that wasn't enough, when Phil took a sip, he noticed a sharp metallic taste.
The thing that hit my tongue was a very, very hard metallic taste,
which made his body immediately reject it. He suspected that the beer was over a year old because of how bad it tasted.
My stomach started curdling. Beer starts to go bad after around 3 months. So I'm thinking the keg had to have been sitting there for at least a year.
But before he could even continue his evaluation, the contaminated beer forced Phil to run to the bathroom and violently vomit into the toilet. This extreme reaction showcased just how spoiled the product had become under Richard's neglect, forcing John Taffer to confront the staff immediately.
Almost killed my frickin' mixologist. Phil is in the bathroom throwing up right now.
Off beer?
Yes! Off beer, for Christ's sakes!
John was aggravated to find out that the beer was served at the wrong temperature when Richard casually stated that the beer...
You let your customers drink it, taste it.
Supposed to be 86.
Supposed to be 86. Is it connected?
And he smashed the glass on the floor. To put that into perspective, draft beer should ideally be served between 36 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So serving beer at 86 degrees not only killed the taste but also turned the drink into a biological breeding ground for bacteria. That's the reason Phil couldn't help but throw up. People online were so disgusted by the beer, with one viewer saying, "I have too much respect for my body to even take a sip of that beer." Another viewer, feeling the bar should have been booked for more health code violations, said, "I can't be the only one that feels like the health code violation should have been way more than 14. Phil throwing up should be one for the beer he drank." Following the incident, John rebuilt everything from the cooling system to the plumbing, giving the bar a new look and better beer. While Richard was trying to sell old, hot, metallic tasting beer, Jim from Brightar Tavern couldn't even drink the beer he was selling. Brightar Tavern was a local, beer-only bar in Glendora, California, bought by Jim Reed in 2013. When Jim first bought the bar, it was still popular and in its prime, so he decided to focus on his other bar, leaving his staff in the Brightar to manage themselves and make some rather questionable decisions.
I love this job. I love that I can come in here and bring people together and to connect and to have a good time. So I thought, okay, open mic night.
This was a huge mistake, and soon enough, the bar lost the majority of its customers.
They were actually really good, and then about a year and a half ago, that started to change. Everything just started to taper off.
To taste the product being served to customers, John sent in Michael and Caitlin. When Caitlin asked for a beer list, she found out there was none, which was ridiculous since beer was their main drink.
Do you guys have a beer list by chance?
We do not.
Back at the SUV, John and his expert watched as the bartender poured waves of foam away, trying to get a good head on the beer, and his expert noted that this flaw was likely due to the glasses not being beer clean.
I have concerns about what we refer to as a beer clean glass, because you could tell by the way that it was poured and the lack of standing head that there's some residue from somewhere inside that glass.
It didn't stop there, because John soon found out that the bartenders even kept a pitcher of hot water next to the taps, which they used to rinse the foam that had spilled on the drip tray.
Oh, so they keep a pitcher of water next to the tapper to rinse the foam. So they expect the foam.
Caitlin ordered an India Pale Ale, and she instantly noticed that there were no hops in the beer.
The characteristics of an IPA would be the hops would be there, and they weren't there. So that means the beer's old. They've fallen off.
And knew immediately that the beer was old and expired.
I had a beer that was old. The characteristics of an IPA would be the hops would be there, and they weren't there. So that means the beer's old. They've fallen off.
John ran a mini test to show the people how much beer was being wasted by using a pitcher of beer and some glasses. He had Jim fill up the pitcher from the tap while he caught the excess foam spilling over with the glasses. 4.5 glasses were filled with foam before the pitcher could be filled with beer. After showing him just how much his negligence was costing him, John asked him which beer he drank in his bar, and Jim admitted to not even drinking his own beer.
What beer do you drink in your bar?
Bottle.
Why?
Because it tastes better.
This constant dumping was causing the bar financial losses, and John used the bartender inventory system to weigh the kegs and show the financial repercussions of the waste. The data revealed that the bar had poured away $1,372 worth of beer in one night, but only sold $752.
We took in $752 and we lost that amount based upon what went down the drain.
Even people online were annoyed by the insane amount of waste, with one viewer saying he was literally throwing money down the drain. The structure of Brightstar's draft system made these bad pours even more inexcusable. Unlike large bars that used long draw draft lines running from a distant back room, Brightstar had refrigerated kegerator units that were directly beneath the counter.
It doesn't even have a draft beer system. It has refrigerated kegerator units. The draft beer comes right out of the keg. It should be flawless, but it sucks.
Before the stress test, John noticed that one of the beer coolers was bad and would affect 4 taps.
One of their beer coolers is bad, which means 4 brands are going to come out bad.
So he decided to close off all 4 and let the staff pour with just the remaining taps. During the final remodel, the bad kegerators were replaced with an ice machine.
Kegerator's not working. We only got one well back there.
So an under-counter ice machine back there?
Wasting hundreds of dollars in foam wasn't a unique issue to Brightstar, as the crew at The Hammer also poured their profits straight down the drain. The Hammer was a Las Vegas dive bar, originally opened by Chris Saray and Mitch Watson, 2 classically trained chefs who initially found great success in the industrial sector, bringing in nearly $25,000 a month.
Position is chef, general manager, janitor, and basically anything that needs to be done around here.
However, after Mitch suffered a severe illness that forced him to step away from the business for months, Chris was left to run the bar alone, and he ended up doing more partying and drinking than maintaining operational standards. This severe lack of management allowed the bars to deteriorate, and Mitch came back to problems that weren't there before he left. To evaluate the true extent of the damage, John Taffer brought in a team of stacked team experts, including Adam Karma, a certified beer expert, known as the godfather of craft beer, along with draft mechanics Mike and Tom from Turbo Tap.
So I called in a dear friend, Adam Karma. Adam?
For the bar, John has brought in Adam Karma, owner and operator of the Las Vegas Freakin' Frog, home of the largest beer selection in the United States. A Cicerone, or certified beer expert, Adam can break down the basics of beer for any beginner bartender.
When Adam measured the exact temperature of the beer being served, he found it was 43 degrees Fahrenheit, well above the industry standard of 36 degrees.
Down to 43 was as low as it went.
So we're dumping foam all day long because of the temperature back there. We got to fix that, guys. We got a serious problem.
Because the draft beer was being stored and poured at such a warm temperature, most of the beer turned into foam, forcing the bartenders to pour out massive amounts of foam, reducing the yield of every keg to just 50 or 60%. The situation only got worse when John asked the bartender named Becky to serve a pint of Guinness. Instead of using the industry standard 6-part pour, Becky set the glass straight from the start. This improper technique completely ruined the beer, because Guinness requires you to start at a 45-degree angle to allow the nitrogen to cascade properly, before straightening the glass slowly as it fills up. Fans of the show found Becky's pouring technique infuriating, with one viewer writing, "Now that is exactly how you do not pour a Guinness." This massive loss of product was further traced back to the bar's cooler, which housed both the glasses and the bar's kegs. Because the cooler doors were constantly open whenever a bartender wanted a glass, the internal temperature never dropped low enough to keep the kegs cold. John brought in Consolidated Mechanical to make sure there was enough air circulation in the walk-in cooler, successfully dropping the draft temperature down to a perfect 36 degrees. He had a state-of-the-art turbo tap system, which poured beer 3 times faster and increased their keg yield to an incredibly efficient 95 to 98% range.
More air circulation in here now. So your beer is coming out at 35 degrees, man. The pressure levels are perfect.
While the beer at the Hammer turned into pure foam because of poor refrigeration and careless pouring, the draft system at the next bar on our list destroyed the flavor of its beer by not taking care of its beer line. Molly Malone's was an Irish-themed sports tavern located in Ramona, California, about an hour northeast of San Diego. In 2006, Bob Isaacson, a former bartender, finally decided to open his own business. And because he lacked the finances, he convinced his parents to cash in $350,000 of their retirement savings to buy the bar. However, things went wrong because Bob completely lacked the discipline required to transition from a bartender to an owner.
Whose tabs are those going on? Are you even asking, or are you just giving away?
Instead of managing the floor, he regularly checked out, creating an environment of total operational chaos.
I went to go see my mother last weekend, and I covered for you, you psycho-ass bitch, dude! You're insane.
There's a cat fight going on.
He also hired his girlfriend of 7 years, Rain, to manage the bar. With no real leadership from Bob, the relationship soured, sales went down, and the staff spent their shifts fighting, calling each other derogatory names, and drinking on the job.
Customers are complaining.
Aren't you behind the bar? How are they my customer?
You're calling me a vagina? Your vagina is falling out right now.
This is disgusting.
Prettier when you smile, Tara.
You're prettier when you're not a whore, bitch.
You just called me a whore? That's funny. That's funny. Why you gotta be such a bitch?
Because the staff was more focused on all this internal drama, the business suffered great losses of up to $6,000 per month. John and his experts set up recon outside the bar, and it didn't take long for them to witness the catastrophic state of the draft system. John spotted a bartender pouring a beer, but instead of a smooth pour, the tap shot out a wave of foam that filled the glass and spilled over into the drip tray. John explained that the excessive foaming meant either the CO2 pressure pushing the kegs was off, or the beer lines themselves were dirty. The staff had to pour out massive amounts of foam to get the beer, actively wasting product while Bob stood around drinking shots with his friends. To fix the beer quality and reduce the excessive waste, John's final fixes included completely overhauling the draft mechanics, replacing the old faulty tap system that caused the beer to foam up with a brand new turbo tap system designed to pour beer up to 80% faster, allowing the liquid to flow smoothly to the bottom of the glass and resulting in a perfect, crisp beer with zero waste. Bad CO2 and filthy lines destroyed the carbonation in every pint poured at Molly Malone's. The draft setup at our next bar had a problem that forced bartenders to pour pitchers of pure foam just to get a single drop of beer. Okelly's Irish pub was located in downtown St. Louis, Missouri, an area widely considered to be the beer capital of America. The pub was opened by Andrea Irvin in 2011, who experienced massive early success, pulling in upwards of $75,000 in a month. The early boom was suddenly interrupted when Andrea's manager at her other business quit, so she had to focus all her attention on her restaurant. To fill the management void, she promoted one of her oldest employees, Kim, to manager, and her inexperienced nephew Cameron to head bartender, a decision that quickly sent the venue into a downward spiral. Cameron had no leadership qualities and treated the establishment like a frat party. He drank on the job and spent more time putting on shows for the customers than serving drinks. John Taffer sent in sports blogger Dan Katz from Barstool Sports alongside NFL defensive lineman Chris Long as his celebrity recon spies. When Dan ordered a draft Bud Light, Cameron used an improper pouring technique and served him a beer that was
Here's a little, flat, maybe?
Serving bad beer in the home of Budweiser was a massive embarrassment, so John had to bring in veteran mixology expert Sean Ford to overhaul their beer program. From what he heard from the recon, Sean figured out that the staff lacked even the basic bartending skills and spent most of their time wasting beer. After a lot of training, only Tina seemed to understand Sean's instructions.
Tina, I think that we are pretty close. 1.03. Good job.
Thank you.
During the stress test, Cameron had a hard time pouring the beer correctly.
I already tell that has way too much head. First beer up, first beer down.
And kept having money taken out of his jar. The stress test got so intense that Kim couldn't handle the pressure and quit on camera.
I'm done. I'm out of here. They're all yelling at me in there. Leave me alone, I'm done, I'm leaving. Stay out of my way. Just get this off me, I'm leaving. I quit Okelly's, get the cameras off me. I quit!
Most people online were over the moon when Kim quit because they felt she was incompetent. One viewer even said, "A bar manager manages the entire building and the business. This old lady Kim, who's supposed to be one, is probably just full of excuses." The bar was subsequently renovated and rebranded into a sleek venue named Pastimes on 4th. To reclaim their credibility, John instituted a day fresh beer program, promoting drafts that had been brewed within 24 hours of consumption to guarantee maximum freshness. The staff at Okelly's Irish pub poured flat beer into glasses that couldn't hold a proper head. The next bar on our list took dirty glassware to a stomach-turning new level by infecting every single draft they served. Located in Fairfield, Ohio, Win, Place or Show was a failing sports bar and grill that had become a ghost town under the leadership of Navy veteran Barry and his friend, musician Rudy Garcia. Barry had invested his life savings of $50,000 into the establishment, yet the business was rapidly losing money and facing a debt of nearly $100,000. This financial decline happened because Rudy Garcia chose to focus on his band, the Cincinnati Sinners, rather than managing the bar professionally.
Total musician, I can care less about the bar right now.
Rudy's focus on his musical career led him to treat the bar as a personal rehearsal space rather than a business, frequently playing at volumes that physically drove paying customers out the door.
So the band is chasing them out.
The lack of oversight allowed the bar to slowly drift into a state of complete chaos. But despite the chaos, the first evidence of poor beer quality was discovered at the bar station, after John Taffer performed a physical inspection of the soda gun by wiping it down with a napkin. He showed the staff the stained napkin and told them what the filth he just wiped off was.
Yeah.
You know what that is? Syrup, bacteria, E. coli.
This pointed to the general lack of sanitation and meant that the whole station and the equipment inside it were likely infected. John made it clear to the staff that there was bacteria in every glass in the bar.
This is bacteria in every glass in this bar.
And that meant that any drink served in those glasses were equally compromised. During the stress test, the staff was so disorganized that a customer was served water instead of beer.
I ordered a beer and they brought me a water.
It's okay. I'll drop this off at the bar.
And the pints that did make it to the tables were most likely warm because they were left out for too long by Tracy.
Tracy's tables aren't getting their drinks in time, and therefore they're coming up to the bar and ordering drinks from us. We're making them and then coming to find out that they're already made sitting over in the server station.
The cumulative failure of the sanitation systems and management finally forced a transition, with Barry ousting Rudy.
Who do we go to do it?
Amber has expressed sincere desire, and I believe she's willing to do it and can do it.
To allow bartender Amber to step in as co-owner, while the bar was eventually rebranded as America Live Bar and Barbecue. The decision to drop Rudy was hugely popular among Bar Rescue faithful, with one viewer saying, "I love this episode, sent the bad owner packing, helped a Navy sailor, and gave a new beginning to a bar." And if you thought the bacteria-ridden glasses at Win Place or Show were repulsive, Barlow's Bar and Grill actually managed to grow a literal chunk of solid bacteria right in the middle of their bar station. Located in Tucker, Georgia, Barlow's Bar and Grill was a bland roadhouse-style bar owned by Susan Wood and John Staval. Susan had originally purchased the business with her husband, but following a divorce, she found herself attempting to manage the 5,200 square foot space without a professional background in the industry.
We opened this place not having any idea what we were doing. When we separated, I got the bar.
Eventually, she brought John on as a partner to run the kitchen. However, the lack of professional standards and non-existent teamwork between the two soon threatened the bar's existence. John Taffer hired 3 industry professionals as recon spies to test the food, drinks, and service, while he and his team, expert mixologist Russell Davis and executive chef Tiffany Derry, watched the surveillance cams from outside the bar. As the spies ordered their first round of drinks, John and his team could already tell that the beer being served was warm.
Oh my God. You're so warm, I'm surprised it didn't melt the glass.
Based on how much foam came out of the tap. When asked later on, Susan confirmed that she knew the exact reason for this.
It's too hot.
It's too hot.
That's why I duct taped it.
You duct taped it.
And that was why she had duct taped it. Draft systems are engineered to operate within a very narrow thermal window, which was completely ignored at Barlow's. John Taffer measured the beer's temperature with a digital thermometer and discovered it was about 45 degrees Fahrenheit, nearly 10 degrees higher than the industry standard of 36 degrees. This meant that the bartenders were forced to pour huge amounts of foam down the drain just to get the actual beer. The consequence of this was that they got only 60% out of each keg rather than the ideal 95%. So Susan and John were essentially throwing thousands of dollars down the plumbing every month. The situation got even worse when John and Russell inspected the equipment behind the bar and found that the beer cooler was in a state of decay. Russell asked when it was last cleaned, to which he got no answer, and he used a towel to pull out stale beer residue from the bottom of it. The final straw was when John pulled up a chunk of solid matter bacteria that had formed on the floor next to the bar counter, making the staff gag and turn away. He made it clear that it was a health code violation that could get customers very ill.
This will get people sick. How many times do you guys see that and not do anything about it?
Stopped all operations and ordered the staff to start cleaning up immediately. Fans of the show were so disgusted by what they saw that one viewer thanked his god that he wasn't in the Georgia area. The next bar, just like the last two, completely ignored standard sanitation procedures. Located in Katy, Texas, a city known for its deep-rooted sports culture, the Endzone was a 4,200 square foot facility that should have been a local favorite. It was founded in 2005 by former male stripper and bodybuilder Justin Whitfield, who later brought on his longtime friend Sean to help him run the business. Unfortunately, they had different views about running a business.
I feel Sean thinks this is more about a popularity contest than it is about running the bar. He lets the bartenders drink behind the bar.
And this disharmony between them, and even the staff, had set the business on a rapid decline. To evaluate the technical failures of the bar, John Taffer brought in a draft beer professional, John J.T. Torrentinos, to conduct undercover recon alongside bar professional Laurie Oritz and John Anthony Oritz, a local with good knowledge of the area. The issues were identified the moment the team ordered their first round of drinks. Upon tasting the product, JT immediately noted that the beer was both sour and flat.
This doesn't taste good.
That's not good.
Which pointed to poor system regulation and dirty lines.
System must not be regulated properly.
They probably don't clean their lines.
This was confirmed when John Taffer and his experts conducted a physical inspection of the draft system. The draft lines, which should be clear, were visibly yellow and brown due to a massive buildup of biofilm and calcium oxalate, commonly known as beer stone. Every ounce of beer served to customers had to travel through this layer of bacteria, effectively contaminating the product before it even reached the glass. The biological risks at the Endzone extended into the walk-in cooler, where Taffer discovered a catastrophic storage error that compromised the entire beverage inventory. Raw meat, including large logs of salami, was stored on shelves directly above cases of bottled beer, and because the meat wasn't properly contained, blood and raw protein fluids were actively dripping down, pooling on top of the beer packaging and on the floor. Further aggravating the situation was a massive fruit fly infestation. Kate Gowen pointed out that the staff's failure to push the overflow buckets had created a honeypot effect, where standing beer residue attracted thousands of pests. Fans of the show couldn't believe how the health standards in the bar got that low, with one viewer saying, "Not nearly as insane as the low-ass health standards in this episode. Blood on beer, crust contamination, bugs eating bugs, what damn freak show going on in that kitchen. Oh, and those beer lines. Wow." Great episode as always, but despite all that happening, John did a complete overhaul of the place, and the bar was eventually renamed to Houston Sports Hub to better reflect its theme. Just like the infected yellow lines at the Endzone, the Los Angeles Brewing Company was pouring their beer through thick, bloomy mold and serving health hazards. To understand why the Los Angeles Brewing Company was serving what many considered the most neglected beer in the history of the series, one has to look at the massive gap between the owner's ambition and his technical knowledge. Owned by Richard Ramos, a successful commercial glazing contractor, the bar was located in the historic Chapman Building in downtown Los Angeles. Ramos had invested $250,000 into the venture and added a 100-tap brew system, but by the time John Taffer arrived, the business was still somehow hemorrhaging $15,000 a month and had spiraled into over $1 million total in debt. The failure of the beer began with a fundamental deception in the bar's marketing. While a sign outside promised customers 100 true beers on tap, a recon mission by celebrity guest Maria Menounos and comedian John and Jason from the show Midnight revealed that the actual inventory was only a fraction of that. When John asked how many beers they had, the head bartender Israel could only count roughly 18 on the list. This discrepancy was the first sign of a collapsing supply chain, but the physical quality of the beer was far worse. When Maria ordered her first drink, it had no head on it, appearing flat and lifeless. John immediately knew the reason why the head wouldn't foam.
Most of the flavor comes from the head of a beer, but the glass is so dirty that the head wouldn't formulate in the first place. So let's see if you can pour me one correctly. Try it again. Wow.
The sensory experience matched the visual failure. Upon taking a sip, Maria spat out the beer and described the flavor as,
"My first beer in there was really nasty and bitter. It was kind of a no-win situation in the liquor department there."
To diagnose the mechanical cause of this repulsive failure, John brought in Master Cicerone Neil Witz, one of the only 9 people in the world with that level of beer expertise. Witt's inspection of the 100-tap system uncovered smelly, brown grime inside the chrome taps, but the true horror was inside the lines. Witt dismantled the brew system and found thick, white, bloomy mold growing inside the wet tubing. This mold was seasoning every beer poured, which also contributed to the bitterness and off-putting scent that Maria had encountered. John got experts to clean the beer lines while Neil gathered the staff to give them a crash course on proper pouring techniques. When it was time for the stress test, Richard failed to monitor his gas levels or order a backup supply, causing the bar to run out of nitrogen mid-test. Without gas pressure, the beer could not reach the taps, resulting in total operational shutdown and forcing the bar to close its doors while a crowd of frustrated customers waited. Crazy enough, Richard didn't know that nitrogen could get exhausted.
Get another backup, right?
How am I supposed to know it's gonna run out? It hasn't.
You're supposed to look. That's why there's gauges.
Or where to get more nitrogen.
I don't have nitrogen. Where do I get nitrogen from?
You get it from your vendor.
People online were shocked by how clueless Richard was, with one viewer saying Richard had to be the most clueless owner of all time. To prevent a return to poor quality, Taffer installed a smart brew computerized brewing system, allowing the staff to produce consistent, high quality craft beer in-house under automated control.